What? What is that? Where's that noise coming from? Oh. If you please don't interrupt the audience, please. Thank you everyone for coming. This is the continuation meeting for the Health, Mental Health, and Education. We just had a joint presentation with the Homeless Committee downstairs, and we have a packed house today. So this is our special meeting, and will be the last committee meeting of this fiscal year, and it is now 4:18, and we will be joined by Council Member Englander, who will be joining us in the next 5 minutes. But since we have such a full house, I'd like to call the meeting to order and have general public comment. If I could have Dr. Tom Williams, Shomari Davis, Pepita Pig, and Wayne. I'll just have Shomari Davis and Dr. Tom Williams. 1 second. I can't do two at one. Okay. So 1 minute.
Dr. Tom Williams, Sierra Club.
It's on.
Yeah. Sierra Club Clean Break Committee. We're quite concerned regarding all oil and gas in the Los Angeles city. We're also quite concerned regarding the Playa del Rey gas storage facility, which includes oil and gas. So we're quite interested in this. Bit of my background. Have you ever heard of the Ross Dress for Less store at 3rd and Ogden? I was there for 3 days putting out the fire. We did it. It was because of oil and gas development within the Salt Lake oil field. So we're quite interested in this one. It's about time, and we look forward to working with and assisting the committee and anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Good afternoon, Councilman Ryu. My name is Shamari Davis. I'm business rep for IBEW Local 11 Electricians Union. And, the industry brings critical benefits to the local residents and the local economy. So proudly providing careers that one can do with only a high school diploma is something that's definitely forthright. By keeping these labor jobs in the community, we generate the revenue within the city, which is something we like to promote. And it also provides a stable, flourishing economy. And if we create enough jobs, maybe we can get this guy a job so he don't have to come to these meetings all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Wayne Spindler, you also signed up for all items 1 through 6. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes for public comment and for all your items.
Oh, okay, very good. Yes, I thank you for the thing about the job offer. But what I need a settlement offer on my 2 federal lawsuits. So if you can get these pigs to be a little less greedy, they can settle it, and then he and me will be on our way to live in Ventura County and get the fuck out of here. Yay! That's what we all need, yes. So now we have a variety of issues. For the record, under 54-950 of the government code, we are not in quorum, and yet we're starting a meeting without a quorum in violation of the law. Oh, look, we're joined by Mitchell Englander. Yes, now we have a quorum. Now we get to the items. Yes, they're having a closed session there. So we have drilling. We're drilling for oil. Good. We support that. Lower gas prices are good. Drill, baby, drill, to quote our great President Trump. Yes, now President Trump is an international criminal and a terrorist, but he's good for business, and we support business here in this committee. And then we have commission members for reappointment, Mr. Wolf. It's spelled like wolf. And we support his renomination. The other candidates for the Commission on Disability, what's it called?
Disabilities.
I'm sorry, because I have a disability. It's hard to say. So I support the renomination for the Commission on Disabilities.
Close enough.
And okay, so I support that. Now we have developers in the room today. Give them a hand. We love you, developers. We love your campaign donations for people who run for office. We love your ability to hire private investigators. We love blackmail, yes. Everything in this city is all corruption, games, pimping, criminal behavior, extortion, arson, robbery, theft, perjury, obstruction of justice. But there's good news. If you work for the city, Jackie Lacey is okay. She will not charge anyone in government with a crime. Yay! So just go on and continue with the felonies, yes, and continue with the criminal behavior. Yes, but there's a problem. The problem is the state bar is going to be looking at some of your deputy city attorneys. They're going to be, how do you say it, bye-bye? But you'll find more young lawyers to join the crime family. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilmember Mitch Englander has joined us, and we now have quorum. And for the audience, I just want to let you know, try to refrain from laughing. We don't want to encourage the behavior. But for those, we see a lot of young individuals here, and I think if you're here for the first time, I just want you to know we value First Amendment rights and free speech. Yeah. So you are seeing a government in action. So this is what you learn about in books. So thank you for participating, and we hope that you guys would come again. But let's not encourage our speakers by reacting to their statements. And Mr. Herman, you signed up for all 6 items.
I
so
remember I signed
3
up
minutes,
for all
including public comment.
Yeah. Now that we got 3 reappointments under the Commission on Disability, I nominate all 3 because of their action under the ADA to prohibit scumbag politicians for violations of affordable housing. There was one settlement today in closed session. We do not know how many millions of dollars the developers owe us ADA clients who have an individual disability. Mine is not big ears, nor is mine a little penis. But we all know that when you have a lot of testosterone in your testicles, it makes you stand strong like a bull. Although Pepita Pig was nominating Mr. Wolf. And then I go into item number 4, the bullshit of Jose Huizar to allow Plum with the double dwarf there, the gentleman with the big ears, for within 120 days with the comprehensive fucking analysis regarding the fucking possibility of implementations of fucking charges or changes to the city's fuck land use codes. We're no longer gonna subject oil drilling. But you heard the puppet. After all, Pepita Pig is a real puppet. And we need growth. And we need to pump oil so I can take a vacation in the summer with gas. Not your ass, Nuri. And so when I was speaking to Zeb downstairs under the conditions of mental health, I talked about the bipolar pig and my little friend, Dr. B, who has not been showing up to the meetings due to a disability. And now I go to item 5, since I'm on topic. Oh no, fuck number 5. And then let's go to 6, because my number 666 from the story of Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden is that the Department of Aging has retaliated against those who are aging due to the standards of agreements for senior community service. Now, if you are going to shake the developers, I suggest you shake them now so that the aging can live to be hundreds and thousands like my ancestors, the Native Americans, who've accomplished that goal. Only except one condition: when you brought your fucking European diseases and knocked off most of us, we still survive. I sign off to my great-grandfather, Crazy Horse. Fuck you, 42 U.S.C. 1983.
Thank you. That fulfills public comment. At this time, I'd like to move to item number 5 and 6. Mr. CLA? We read those in.
Item number 5 is the Los Angeles Department of Aging report relative to the 2017-18 update to the 4-year area plan on aging from July 1, 2016 to June 30, 2020. And item number 6 is the Department of Aging report relative to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget and standard agreement for senior community service employment program with the California Department of Aging.
Thank you. And I'd like to take these on consent. That's okay with you, Mr. Englander? Great. We'll take them on consent. For now, I'd like to move to items numbers 1, 2, and 3. Mr. CLA, if you could read all 3 of them in, and if we could have the 3 commissioners come on up.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor.
Yes. Oh.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. David E. Wolf to the Commission on Disability for the term ending June 30th, 2022. Item number 2 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Richard Rothenberg to the Commission on Disability for the term ending June 30, 2022. And item number 3 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Robert Williams to the Commission on Disability for the term ending June 30, 2022.
Thank you so very much. And thank you, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Rothenberg, and Mr. Williams for coming today. And if you could just briefly tell us about yourself and what focuses that you want to have on the commission, and any accomplishments that you've had in the past, and what you wish to do in your next term.
David, I'll let you go first.
I was going to
You want to go last?
let my distinguished colleagues go first.
Okay, well then, I will defer to your leadership. I'm Richard Rothenberg. I've served since the first term of Mayor Garcetti, and I brought my credentials with my stick because I've got Parkinson's disease, which often doesn't present physically, but when it does pretty profoundly. So I've worked with Michael J. Fox Foundation on Parkinson's research, and I've been a member of the community for my whole life. I'm honored to be serving on the Commission on Disability. I'm working with my colleagues here on advocating for disabled people in the homeless community, in the veteran community, and aged population as well. And I'm also serving as the co-head of the Opioid Commission for Disability, more for trying to bring people in to educate the council and the mayor's office and the community about the growing crisis and as it impacts our disabled community that in some cases need to get some treatment that they aren't able to get because of the abuse of it in other sectors. But that's my current focus, and I'm just happy to be able to meet you all and be here.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
That's Rothenberg.
Oh, Rothenberg, sorry. I apologize.
It's all right.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you very much. I'm Robert Williams. I'm a resident of District 4. Appreciate your leadership there. And my role, I am Canon for Community Relations in the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles, and also the current president of the Interreligious Council of Southern California, which brings us into good networking with the various religious leaders around Southern California, and especially in the city of Los Angeles. And one common area that we have with our commission members is affordable housing and sustainable housing for those who are experiencing homelessness at this time. And we've all seen the statistics this past week, knowing this increase and the need for greater services. We're working with the religious community to see about property that might be underused and might be made available in partnership with the city to construct, as we say, affordable or sustainable housing. And Commissioner Wolf, my esteemed colleague, and I co-chair, in fact, the Commission on Disability Subcommittee on Affordable Housing. And so we look forward to carrying that forward. And that's one area of the kinds of accomplishments we've been able to make under the leadership of our chair, Dr. Robert Petante, who has had us looking at really all manner of aspects of the Affordable Care Act and other things that impact the disability community more strongly. than perhaps other aspects, other constituencies. So there we are doing our work, and we appreciate the opportunity to be of service.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf?
Gentlemen, it's very nice to see you once again. As you know, I've worked with both of you in the past. In regards to your request, Councilman Ryu, I have a document that the commission prepared under my leadership from 2009 on homelessness and veterans and on Veterans Affairs. So I'd like to present that recommendation that went to the mayor and to the city council right now to show you as part of my past record. If I may have it brought up to both of you.
Yes.
And have it be made part of the record, please. Thank you. I have some prepared notes, if I may. I believe, I would say we on the Commission of Disabilities believe that the needs of persons with disabilities are the same, are those needs that are the same in the general population. The only difference is that we need special considerations. For example, the needs of a blind individual are not the needs of myself as an individual with cerebral palsy, or the needs of a person with Parkinson's, such as Commissioner Rothenberg. And this is something that I'd like you to take into consideration when developing policy for the city of Los Angeles, that not every person with disability is to be put in a one bag, let's say. I would say that the in response, in also dealing with this committee of the city council, one of the major aspects, because we're disabled, is the need for health care. By the very nature of being disabled, you have special needs for health care, such as can be seen with Commissioner Rothenberg and with myself. I have a learning disability. I have a swallowing disability as part of my cerebral palsy, and besides the physical need of ramps, etc. I would also like to state, as far as health, that the needs of pediatric and disability are most commonly looked at. But once you hit 18 and there is no service anymore, there usually is less health funding for adults with different types of disabilities. That is why I and my late father presented ideas before Congress to develop the goal of developing an institution in the National Institution of Health for adults with disabilities. And we have to remember that certain disabilities are less common and they don't have the types of resources that autism, the Autistic Society, or other societies may have. I would say my next series of points deals basically with the constant needs of people with disabilities. And I would quickly go through them. They are not only health, as I mentioned, but housing, as Commissioner Williams has stated, attendant care, and in-home supportive services. Even though that's not a city responsibility, citizens of Los Angeles are impacted by IHSS. That is why the city must take a point of view on this issue to take care of the citizens within its jurisdiction. Transportation. Transportation is a problem for all Angelinos, as I'm sure most of you know by just going down the freeways at 6 o'clock. We have to use a variety of systems such as access services and other paratransit organizations. Right now, such organizations as Uber are not accessible to us, and we have been left by different taxi companies, even though taxis are becoming better and more equipped. But most disabled individuals do not have the type of money to use private taxis. The next issue is employment. Most people in the disability community, 80%, are unemployed and are government dependent, thereby draining government of resources. Also, I would say that there are ways by which we can improve. This brings me to my next series of issues, looking towards the future. I would say with the current federal government, local government must take a more active role, local and state government together, by bringing not only government in, but nonprofits and businesses together working with government is a way to find solutions to problems. The only way we can do this is by developing a community spirit, a very active community spirit, showing the people what we can do, not what we can't. I, as a disabled person, have lived by not by what I can't do, but by what I can do, and what I'm willing to do, and I'm willing to try anything once.
Thank you.
With that, I'll
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
leave it. I hope I didn't talk too.
No,
Too long.
thank you. No, thank you. Thank you so very much, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Rothenberg, and Mr. Williams. Everything you said, I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with disability issues for over a decade when I was back at the county, and my mother herself was a home health care worker as well. And we've come a long way in the many years. I mean, we still have a longer way to go, but I think the reason why we are here in this moment in time where we're more sensitive to disability, all disability issues, is because of the expertise, insight, and experience from individuals like yourself. So thank you so much for your service. And Councilman Englander, if you wanted to say.
I do. I want to thank you all for not just stepping up, but stepping up again. This is a reappointment. It was.
Mr. Engel, I'm sorry. You know, Mr. Spindler, Mr. Herman, this is your first and final warning. You're making gestures throughout as well as noise. If you do it one more time, you're going to be removed from this room. Can you remove Mr. Spindler from the room, please?
Mr. Spindler, you've been making noises the whole time during the speakers and disrupting this meeting.
Sorry about that, Mr. Englander.
Thank you.
Yeah, you might want to note for the record that he's been disrupting the meeting and make sure that makes it onto the record.
He's continuing to disrupt the meeting.
Yes, let the record show that he's walking out and continuing to disturb.
Thank you, Mr. Herman,
Mr.
for
Herman.
shouting out again after your warning.
Can you take Mr. Herman out, escort Mr. Herman out of the room too, please? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Engler, I apologize.
Oh, wait.
Now, if I was yelling, Dibble Dwarf, that's yelling.
So I think it's
Yeah, you just might want to note for the record that the guest continued to talk rather loudly as he was leaving the meeting, continuing to disrupt the meeting.
and you'll note that we're used to that, but not all these folks might be. They're here at every meeting, every committee meeting, and every council meeting, and do the same thing every
Ours
time.
too.
And yours
Believe
too.
me.
And yours too.
I've
So, well, at least I know that we're all equal. One of the things my colleague just said, I just have to have a different perspective on, with all due respect. You said we've done a lot in this space in working with the disabled, and I don't think we've even come close to doing a lot, quite frankly. I think oftentimes, actually, we have gone backwards in time. My father was a 100% disabled vet. My sister I cared for 10 years. She was disabled before she passed away. I've been working with Mr. Wolf and his late father for many, many years on a lot of these key issues. I don't think we've begun to scratch the surface and providing the need we people rightfully deserve. This commission is so important. The recommendations that you have are critically important, but they have to be acted on. And too often they're not, and they have to be funded. And so I thank you again for stepping up. Mr. Wolf, I want to ask you another favor. You had written your dissertation at USC in '91 on the theory of impact of time on the crises of decision-making process of the President of the United States. It would be interesting to get your take at another setting on this current administration, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for your continued dedication and service.
Thank you. One other comment that I would like to make, dealing of importance. I'm serving on a subcommittee of the commission dealing with emergency preparedness. And we have to deal with that issue. That issue is constant.
Well, let me just point out, and you bring that up, and I know I know all these people that are here to actually, they're not on here on another issue. They're here to support you three, right? Okay. On that, I want to thank you. One of the things you and I worked on years ago, and I wish I could take credit. I think I was simply in the room. But one of the things you did was to push the Red Cross to make sure that any evacuation center that we had available that was on the list as a pre-approved center for major disasters, earthquakes, fires, that were all pre-checked to be ADA ready and accessible, and they are now. And that was something that you'd worked on for years, and I appreciate it, and all the work of your father on that as well.
Anytime you need a person with chutzpah, let me know.
You got it. All right, thank you.
Thank you again, commissioners, and thank you for all your service. We have a long way to go. Thank you.
Let's give them all a round of applause, shall we?
Thank you so much. And I look forward to working with all of you.
Great. So, we already satisfied public comment, so I'd love to move to approve items 1, 2, and 3 with no objections.
No objections.
So moved. So now I'd like to move to our last agenda item on the agenda today, which item number 4, Mr. CLA, if you could read that in.
Yes. A motion relative to instructing the Department of City Planning, with the assistance of the City Attorney and the Petroleum Administrator, to report within 120 days with a comprehensive analysis regarding the possible implementation of changes to the city's land use codes relative to oil and gas development, as detailed in the motion, including a request for the Health, Mental Health, and Education Committee, with the assistance of the Petroleum Administrator, to work with the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health relative to the health effects of oil and gas operations in Los Angeles.
Thank you very much. And today we are hearing a very important item for the city of Los Angeles, and one that has been a very tricky issue for the city to figure out on how to move forward. Today, I believe we'll be able to discuss and take the first steps forward on determining how to assess and regulate health impacts from oil and gas wells in the city of Los Angeles. I'd like to bring up, we have 2 individuals. We have our fairly new and now veteran Petroleum Administrator to come on up to the table, as well as with the LA County Department of Public Health representatives, to talk about the various work that they're doing. And actually, we got a request from the Public Health Department. They have to leave first, so we're going to have them present first, because I know our Petroleum Administrator will stick around and answer any questions. So if the County Department of Public Health could talk about some of the work that you guys are doing on the oil and gas health impacts.
Maybe I can cue them up before
Sure.
we go to them. So thank you, council member and committee, for having us today. It's a very important item, and appreciate being here. My name is Udawak Joe Untuk. I'm the Petroleum Administrator for the recording. Just to say that oil and gas operations have been happening in the city for more than 100 years, has a long history and legacy in Los Angeles, and the nature of the oil and gas infrastructure and industry is highly complex. And technical in nature. We have approximately 23 oil fields that intersect the city of LA boundaries. That's both active, abandoned, and gas storage fields. We have more than 40 different pipeline utility companies that operate different commodities within the city of Los Angeles, 5 different oil and gas refineries, 6 marine oil terminals that have crude oil or refined products that go in and out of the Port of LA. And we, in my office and the city at large, has been working with LA County Public Health Department for many years, and most frequently on oil and gas the last year or so. A primary example I wanted to queue up for the county was the Furman Street example in CD1 in Echo Park, where there's 2 orphan wells that were abandoned in residents' front yards last summer. And LA County Public Health had a key role in making sure that we had mitigations. Also, the LA County has an oil and gas strike team that they started last March that's been looking and assessing the county's role in oil and gas regulation and oversight in unincorporated county. So you have anywhere from the Torrance oil field in Bray Canyon near the Harbor Gateway out past Magic Mountain and Castaic are all parts of unincorporated LA County that have oil and gas operations that the county has been actively engaged in with the Public Health Department. Also, the Public Health Department and the Petroleum Administrator, we've done a number of community forums and convenings on public health and oil and gas with the Liberty Hill Foundation and Stand LA Coalition, giving presentations this past spring. And then we have a position funded through the County of Public Health in emergency management that's someone with a Master's of Public Health background that works for the city but funded by the county. So it's a unique collaboration and partnership that we already have. I have some additional things to talk about related to the motion, but at this time I wanted to give the county an opportunity to speak to the motion and some work that we've been doing.
Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. We applaud LA City for this motion. It is a very good motion. And when Uduak talked about our response with the city last year at the Furman response, that was a very small, relatively small response, and it was addressing two abandoned wells. And as Uduak has said, and the community will attest to, the oil and gas industry is very complex. There's abandoned wells, idle wells, operative wells, productive wells, and so each one presents its unique hazards depending on where it's located and how it's operating. And what we did learn while the Furman response was a very good collaboration between the city and the county and the state to address the health concerns that were arising as a result of the abandoned well. What it did call to our attention is that more investigation is needed around the varying wells and the health impacts that are associated with those operations. So with that, our board drafted a motion for us to assess the oil and gas wells within the county unincorporated area, and that's the effort that we've launched for over about a couple months, and we're probably going to be finished by the end of this year, and we're broadly assessing health and safety conditions at the wells to identify different types of operations, and to understand, mostly for us to understand the different types of operations and the different types of hazards that each operations present. And at the end of the year, we'll be presenting a report to our board in response to that motion, identifying the next steps regarding any kind of health impact assessments.
So I'll just add to what Ms. Contreras said regarding our current work on the oil and gas strike team. She mentioned that we are actively engaged right now in a review of health reviews and existing data that are already out there regarding health impacts. And we're using that review and information to inform the strike team work. In addition to that, we're working on a jurisdictional scan. We're looking at what other states and counties have done with regards to local ordinances, local policies to address health and safety concerns of oil and gas. And so that jurisdictional scan will also be completed over the summer to inform the oil and gas strike team work.
Great. I know you guys had to go, so if I could just ask a quick question. So, so in the county, is it run out of public health?
It's run out of regional planning.
Oh, regional planning.
Regional planning is the lead for the strike team, and it's a multi-agency effort, county-wide, all unincorporated areas. And what we're finding is when we go to a facility that's technically in unincorporated areas, a lot of times the fence line will share with city. So there's a lot of overlap and the potential to collaborate here on the existing efforts that are going on at the county. We really see that request in this motion for the health assessment very congruent with the current work that we're doing.
So does the county have like a petroleum administrator or equivalent position?
We do not.
Oh, we set the trend,
Yep.
You are very trend-setting.
And I know you said you're starting your studies,
right?
And it's going to take another 6 months. But do you know what type of health hazards you're aware of for residents residing near active or inactive drilling sites? Is that too early to tell, or?
Yeah. So right now we're reviewing all of that evidence, and there's a very long list of potential hazards, from truck traffic to odors to noise to air emissions to aquifer integrity when wells intercept our water source, and there's really a wide range of hazards that we're scoping what the existing evidence is out there right now from our research, from our site visits that we're doing in the oil and gas strike team work. We go to the actual sites on inspections with public health and safety checklists, and also through convening community stakeholder meetings.
Mr. Englander, I know you have a lot of questions, but we're going to have our petroleum administrator present as well. So, if you have any particular questions for our public health department,
just not really questions. I represent the area affected by the Aliso Canyon blowout, the largest gas storage blowout or well blowout in U.S. history. 20,000 people 20,000 people were evacuated out of their homes. Over 8,500 homes shut down. 2 schools, businesses. You saw an entire populated community come to its knees, wreaking havoc of untold proportions. We don't even know yet the long-term impacts, health or otherwise, environmental, financial. There's no question that these facilities simply don't belong in populated communities if they belong anywhere at all. There's no question we've got to figure out a way to not reopen any new facilities, but probably more importantly, properly close existing ones. And I say properly because when they're abandoned, we have real problems.
Right.
Even the small ones. I was talking to a friend of mine who's on the city council in Beverly Hills. They have one at a high school that many people have heard about. And that one, recently, that company that bought it went out of business. And they were so grateful it's going to be shut down. But now they've inherited a cleanup of millions of dollars to the city that they didn't fund for. So there are so many, as big as the industry is, that's how big the problems are. And the other flip side of that is it employs a lot of people. And so what I'd like to make sure, too, is while we go down this path of study, health and financial and impact, we also consider some opportunities to any new facilities for clean energy should all have project labor agreements. They should all have retraining capabilities. We've seen what's happened in other parts of the country where they've done a good job of closing down coal mines and other damaging types of industries, but they've completely failed miserably in making sure they've taken care of those workers because these are oftentimes not healthy working conditions, but these are people that could be easily retrained and repurposed, and we got to take care of them. So in balancing that, I think it's really tricky, and there's a lot of moving parts, and I get it. I've been literally living and breathing this. I live within the radius as well. I've seen the nosebleeds, the headaches, the nausea, the dizziness, all the symptoms and the side effects, and we haven't even, again, seen the long-term effects because we don't know what those are. My district also happens to have, and we're in the shadows of the Santa Susana Field Lab, and I also have one of the largest landfills in the United States. Welcome to CD12. And annual fire season is a lot of fun, too. But we are a community that work together, and it's a phenomenal community to represent. It's just having these facilities just simply don't belong. This is the beginning of these types of health studies here in our basin and our region. I beg of you to do everything you can, but more importantly, your cooperation and working with us is so welcomed. And I so appreciate everything you're doing. Whatever resources you need from us, we're there for you. And I thank you. Godspeed.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Englander. You've been a champion in this field, and I know you've spent...
We don't say field when we're talking about this arena.
and I know you've been out there in Aliso Canyon countless hours and seeing the effects yourself. So thank you for your work on that. But so seeing no other questions, you're still going to present? But I just really want to thank the Public Health Department, and we'd love to work collaboratively with you because obviously when it comes to our environment, it's only one planet, and it's some arbitrary line on the ground or in a map or a fence is not gonna it's not gonna be a barrier. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Udoa?
Yeah, thank you. Adding to our work together, we met 2 weeks ago with the environmental health group within LA County Public Health to talk about the motion and see how we could work together. And some things that came up, they, as part of the oil and gas strike team, will have an interim report on health impacts in oil and gas will be coming out this August that will be informative, one to this motion, but also how we can work together as far as what's the right option as far as report for policymakers. Is a health risk assessment the right pathway to go, or a health impact assessment the right pathway to go? Having that interim report completed will help inform their recommendation. So one of the things that they want to include when we have our report back in 120 days is that interim report, and then make a recommendation of which pathway to go. but also looking at most relevant information related to Furman Street. So I sent over to the clerk a copy of the preliminary environmental health assessment that was done, and I think everyone had a copy of it, and there's copies in the back by the county health department on some of the issues and hazards we had with the Furman Street experience, where there was complaints of odor, of soot and soil spray on people's cars and homes that were mitigated through you put enclosures around the drilling rig that were certain hours of operation. There was a number of mitigation measures that were put into place at that site that alleviated the concerns from the community. So include as a copy of that, but they'll also include findings from this in our final report back. But part of the options too is really scoping out what resources are going to be needed to complete that. In my recent budget request, I had put in some funding for this type of work, but it wasn't approved. And so we're going to come back and say, if we are going to do health risk assessments or health impact assessment, this is exactly how much it would cost relative to other assessments, so that we'll have a good idea of what resources we need to put forward to move forward on that. Additionally, we talked about drafting a memorandum of understanding of what exactly is our relationship, what is our communication protocols, what is our emergency protocols. One of the things that came out of the Furman Street was creating almost like a mini unified command so that everyone was communicating and working together. That was in an emergency situation, but how do we work together when we're not in an emergency situation? And so coming back with a draft of terms how the county and the city can work together. The example is, we already have one position funded, but there could be other positions funded or other partnership opportunities that the MOU could help us address. And then also, they're going to come back with a literature review related to health impacts, the setbacks of the different radius amounts of what health impact has what magnitude or radius of potential distance. And so that'll be part of the report back as far as their literature review and their scanning of other municipalities of what do they do, what do they have in their ordinances already that we may not have. I think that concludes at least prepared remarks, and open to take additional questions.
Let's have a quick comment when you're ready.
You want to make a quick comment first? Well, thank you so much, and Councilman.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Welcome. I know you've got a full plate. One of the things I think we're spot on in conducting that comprehensive health analysis. If I can take a step back on the emergency plans, those are critically important. And one of the things Aliso, for example, didn't have and failed to have was an emergency plan. And they didn't have at the ready the right equipment to shut down a blown well. They had to ship it in from the Gulf Coast, which took months. They didn't have the experts on board, and they were negotiating those. They didn't have the infrastructure in place to bring in the proper equipment and authorities. They didn't have an outreach program and a communication effort or a plan to reach out to not only the local community stakeholders, elected officials, but even the regulatory agencies. They were brought up on criminal charges on that. I mean, there are a long laundry list of emergency plans that this under-regulated industry desperately needs and needed. Having said that, though, one of the things I did years ago, and I mentioned that for a reason, that we've got the biggest operating landfill. There was no closure date for this landfill, and we know we have to put our trash somewhere. And so we went and I studied trash literally all over the world and best practices and looking at what we can do. And the talk of the town here in California has been renew, recycle, and repurpose. All mildly interesting, except you still have a residual and you need a landfill. Although some countries are looking at no landfilling at all and have done it with clean alternatives. And so I went and studied those technologies, came back here to LA and wrote a 1,000-page plan called Renew LA. And without getting into the details of that, at first we started exactly in the space of what are we going to do and what's the health effects of the local community. And operating a landfill, what's the effects on the environment and the groundwater? Because we all know all landfills leak. And as they get old, as with any infrastructure and industry, you're going to have problems. And we're seeing that now. So one of the things that I would propose is looking at is a series of studies that I think need to be done. While we know full well not every facility in the entire county, or for that matter the city, can be shut down tomorrow. I think many would like it that way, including myself. But having said that, we definitely need a plan to end our dependency and get out of it. So what does that start with? And I think it's a governmental study and a plan, a series of studies, and all leading up to, if you will, a closure date. And looking at that, it would be starting with health, and I think that's the most critical. I'd also look at an full environmental assessment. And then this won't be taken on by the petroleum administrator. It's going to be taken on by an army and a team and filling rooms like this and making sure that we fund these. A financial study and what it's going to cost, both to close those facilities, to not reopen any, to conversion and transformation into clean energy, to cleaning up those facilities. We're going to have to do a comprehensive analysis on those. We can't just under a takings lawsuit and shut them down and then we own it and we'd bankrupt literally the city. But that doesn't mean we can't do it. We just need a plan. So that's critically important. I mentioned earlier the employment. This industry employs a lot of people with good paying jobs. And so we need a transition plan. Some of the thing I'm really proud to cite his work was Mayor Bloomberg and his work with the Sierra Club. And that's often what he talked about, was not leaving a worker behind. As much as he was funding the Sierra Club, he was funding programs and training programs, and not enough, but we need that up front. We need to make sure that we take care of our labor force, and that's critically important as well. And so I think starting at that point and writing a comprehensive report on all of those factors. Otherwise, it's 2 or 3 years of studying a health analysis and then talking about it and then actually having studies on the actual folks that are living within the shadows of these facilities, and then we get lost on all the other things and the movement on where we need to go. So what's the objective? Where are we trying to go with this? This meeting, a series of meetings, and actually putting some pen to paper and putting our money where our mouth is, and perhaps also looking at some of the industry to pay for this, because we are often negotiating agreements with them for their utilization of our infrastructure under our streets and their pipeline delivery systems. There's cash on the table, I believe, to fund a lot of this. And it's how we did it with Renew LA. I'm sure we can get there because I think the will is there. So I want to thank you very, very much for being here and representing the city in this effort. And thank you to our chair for putting all this together as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Englander, and I just wanted to reiterate your points. But at the same time, I mean, you already had a big enough study to do in the first place. You just kind of
Rome wasn't built in a day. We got to start
expanded tremendously. So maybe if you could focus on, like the emergency plan, because I know the initial motion was focused on the health concerns and the health impacts, but everything the council member just stated is very, very crucial, and it's all interrelated. So if you could provide recommendations on how to go forward on some of those other items that was mentioned. And when it comes to emergency plan, it's not just the actual emergency plan for the actual station, but it's what happens in the aftermath, like the health plan, right? For health evacuations, health treatment, and all of that. And again, this is more beyond the scope of the motion, but I can't agree more about, this is the future, and as we transition out and start getting more into clean energy, the good news is clean energy industry has shown to create more jobs. But when those jobs are created, we have to make sure that we're providing ample ways for the existing workforce to transition into that workforce. For any kind of new construction and anything else to be under PLAs, to have more cross-training, et cetera, et cetera. We got to make sure that we don't, because this is a huge industry, this is a big job creator, and we have to make sure we have as least impact in that arena as possible. With that said, though, I had a couple other questions. You asked about your budget. How is your initial? Is it 6 months now, or how long has it been? 8?
I've been here for 9 months now.
9 months now. Okay. So how's your team building? That was your initial trying to. You got a little bit of budget, and have you hired everybody on board?
We have made no hiring. We were allocated 5 new positions plus 9-month funding for my position. The 5 new positions were 6-month funded. So later this year, we'll begin the process of hiring. But we don't have authorization at this time to.
Oh, you don't have authorization? Okay. Well, I'm on Personnel Committee. We'll talk afterwards, but you're still a team of 1. Earlier you mentioned, gave us a brief overview of how many gas and oil wells there are in the city of LA. Do you have any estimates on how many of those are located in close proximity to sensitive areas?
Many of the reports that are out there talk about LA County at large. And the city of LA has a much smaller footprint. There's approximately 5,100 wells in the city of LA. Of those, 4,000 or so are in some stage of abandonment. About 1,000 are active, where about 800 are actively producing oil and gas, and another 200 to 250 are idle, where they're not currently in use. For various stages of time and for various reasons. And so I have not begun looking at specifically LA wells and radiuses. I have done some work as far as pulling together what other
5,100's in LA.
5,100's in LA, and you can say 1,000 are active.
So about 1,000.
Yeah, but I pulled together some setback numbers as far as what other cities like Carson, Bakersfield, Huntington Beach, Inglewood all have various ranges of setback, anywhere from 0 to 1,000 feet. And then there's also been some environmental impact reports in the general area that address safety, risk, noise, odor, air quality, and those range from about 1,600 to 150 and setback for the various items that are considered. So whether noise has a different threshold than odors and air quality. So I pulled together some preliminary numbers, but I haven't got to the point to do LA specifically based on active wells.
So I'm just going to hold back my questions because obviously, I mean, this is also for the audience. This is stage 1. I mean, this is the very, very, very beginning. And obviously, we're fortunate to have the Petroleum Administrator to lead this study because we don't even know exactly how many oil fields are, the exact number of how many they're active, exactly where they are, what's in sensitive areas. So this is a bold step that the City of LA, the first step than any other location is doing. And I'm going to look forward to this study. But I just want to ask, what does the governance and the regulatory structure for oil and gas wells look like if you could kind of project?
Yeah, it's very fragmented. You have multiple agencies, more than a dozen, that have different components depending of below the wellhead, above the wellhead, the production facilities at the surface. So you have the California Department of Oil and Gas, DOGGR, as a subsurface regulatory agency, but they also do have some surface jurisdiction. You have our LA City CUPA, that's the Certified Unified Program Agency. That's a state program that the city administers that looks at the fire impact and hazardous materials. You have South Coast Air Quality Management District that regulates emissions. You have the Regional Water Board that looks at water injection and water aquifer protection. You have EPA. You have Cal OSHA. You have there's LA City. So within the city family, you have fire department, planning department, building and safety department, Parks and Rec, Petroleum Administration, that all have various roles to play in the regulatory.
So this study's going to take a while.
I think
just to navigate.
We have a clear understanding. It's just putting it together and making a clear delineation of whose roles and responsibilities and jurisdictional boundaries. And we've worked together, like the Rancho Park inspection we did in CD5 this past March was a collaborative effort with the city and external agencies to look at one site of, it was fire compliance, electrical permits, water injectors, and there was a report generated by the planning department that showed, what it's like to collaborate and bring in all the different agencies. And some of the agencies weren't able to get information from because of we don't have established confidentiality agreements for data sharing, or there's litigation or ongoing investigation in their shop, and so they don't want to give records or files or inspection reports until they're concluded with their investigation. So there's some challenges with interagency coordination external to the city to get information.
Thank you. If you could stick around, we have a lot of speaker cards here. Just want to say everyone's going to get a minute each, but you don't have to take your full minute if you just want to, because we have to get through and we have to make sure that we have quorum to pass this motion. So I'm going to call 3 people up, and if you guys could come up and just say your name and you could state your position or anything else you want to say. And that's Jessica Duboff, Willie Rivera, and Faith Mira. And the next 3, I'm just going to state it out, is Patrick Voel, Yolita Dines, and Rudy Rodriguez.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jessica Duboff. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. This is a very complicated issue with significant unintended consequences that needs to be carefully thought out before any land use changes or drilling restrictions are implemented. The Chamber plans to submit more detailed written comments outlining our input on the study's scope of work, but I wanted to share some initial feedback today. LA is an energy island when it comes to oil and gas production. Up to 90% of the supplies consumed in the region can be imported. Drilling ensures we have the local resources needed to balance significant fluctuations in supply and demand. Restricting drilling could exacerbate existing supply and reliability concerns and could lead to significant increases in energy prices and job losses. We understand the Council wants to research health and safety issues, but don't think 120 days is sufficient time to perform all the necessary research and stakeholder outreach. As you've heard, a similar process has been ongoing at the county for nearly a year and is still ongoing. Moving forward, the Chamber is uniquely positioned to help the city with this effort. We represent a number of energy companies across multiple sectors, and we'd be happy to engage them with you. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Willie Rivera, Director of Regulatory Affairs for the California Independent Petroleum Association. You should have received a letter that included several studies from us earlier today. I have copies here I will leave with you as well. We certainly look forward to the opportunity to work with your petroleum administrator and you folks as you flesh through this particular motion, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 critical components that I think really need to be considered as you move forward. One is the economic impact associated with shutting in these wells. You'll hear from folks today that rely on the jobs and the economic revenue that the city benefits from that comes from oil and gas. And 2, I think it's important you consider the environmental and real human impacts associated with shipping in oil from elsewhere. Because at the end of the day, shutting down oil and gas in the city of LA will not mean we will no longer use it. So it will have to come from somewhere, and that's something you should consider as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day. My name is Faith Myra, and I'm an organizer with Food and Water Watch. I live in CD11. I know Councilmember Mike Bonin once the Playa del Rey facility closed, and especially once it included in the study. It's leaking, and people are getting sick, and I wonder why this dangerous facility is in the center of my community. I think we need to consider health and safety first and as a priority. Thank you.
Hey, Rudy, hold on for 1 second. Patrick Vowell is here. If you could sit up. Yolita Dines. And the next 3, and if the seats open up, you guys could come and sit down like Rudy did. And that's going to be Tim Redondo, Stephanie Granai from IBEW, and Tommy Favare. Favai. Okay.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Rudy Rodriguez. I'm with Local 250 Steam Fitters Refrigeration, 5,800 strong, located in Gardena, California. I'm here today to stand up for the working men and women in the city. After careful review of the proposed motion, I realize the lasting impacts that are at risk here. For the working families, California oil and gas industry supports more than 116,000 jobs in LA. These are high-paying jobs with full benefits for working families that will be at risk. Last year, the industry provided $5.4 billion in tax revenues to LA County alone, funding public safety, libraries, community centers, numerous local services that will be at risk. If we keep production local, we can keep it affordable, reliable, safe, and heavily monitored. As Governor Brown said earlier this week, how does someone reconcile using airplanes to travel firmly remain against the industry? A world without oil is not an option. Let's keep the jobs local, the workers, the residents safe, the environment closely monitored rather than send the industry off to a third world country. Thank you for the opportunity.
My name is Patrick Vowell, Environmental Health and Safety Specialist for Sentinel Peak Resources, the current operator of the Inglewood oil field, as well as other facilities in the Los Angeles area and other parts of California. Modern-day urban living in the LA Basin reflects a very high standard of living. Our highways, water supply, community sewer, gas and electric grid, and more all support that standard. However, modern-day urban living is also associated with high traffic volumes on the ground and in the air, dense development, industry intermixed with residential development, all of which result in exposure to conditions that may affect public health. The findings of a health risk assessment should inform the city on overall land use planning, guiding it to permit land uses that are compatible over a wide variety of considerations, not just in regard to oil and gas production. So please take advantage of the existing public health assessment information to speak to the wide variety of factors that potentially could impact neighborhood quality of life, and share the information with the people of Los Angeles so that our families can make a broadly informed decision. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Yolita Dines, and I'm here with Creed LA. I'm here today to remind you that the jobs created by this industry benefit people from across California, across many diverse ethnic and class backgrounds. Unlike other growing industries, this industry has consistently fought to support diverse ethnic backgrounds, and we are here to fight for their continued operations in the city of LA. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next three. When these seats open up, you could sit down, and that's Daryl Molina Sarmiento, Marta Arguello, and Shazia Manji.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tim Redondo, and I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this item. I am speaking on behalf of UADC 16 pipe fitters, plumbers, welders, and apprentices in Southern California. The Southern California region benefits most from employment by the oil and gas industry, with 49% of the industry's statewide direct employment here in SoCal. This industry provides good-paying, middle-class jobs, which helps to support working men and women, which enable them to provide for their families. Jobs that stay within the community through the energy industry only helps to provide more revenue, which will ensure a more stable economy and energy independence. Importing oil from foreign countries and other states sends well-paying jobs and billions of dollars in tax revenue out of California. We urge the members of this committee to keep in mind that tax revenues from oil production benefit our community in many important ways. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Granai, and I'm here on behalf of IBEW Local 11. Governor Brown said it best when he asked if there's a benefit to having oil production in California. He said the benefit is that we don't have to bring it in by ship that might crash and pollute the water, or bring it in by train that might explode or have a crash and dump the oil in the rivers, which has happened in California. There's something grossly hypocritical about saying we don't want any oil production in California. We want it among the poor and third world people and let them suffer. Whereas we want to just have our nice, clean environment. That's not bearing the burden with the benefit. I urge you to consider the government's statement and keep safe, reliable production here in Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tommy Falvai. I'm here today on behalf of our IBEW Local 11 members. I'm here today to remind you that tax revenues generated from oil production benefit our community in many important ways. Over the last several years, industry management and labor have worked together to provide hundreds of local residents with good, safe jobs that pay livable wages and offer health care and retirement security. The taxes generated from these jobs and oil production also generate an important stream of tax revenue for the city. These taxes help fund schools, police and fire, and many other community services. Additional restrictions on oil production will take away from the city's ability to fund key services, including public safety, transportation, and other essential services provided by the city. I urge you to strongly consider what I have said today. Thank you.
I'm going to call the next three. Dr. Jill Johnston, Chris Taylor, and Dr. Barna
Shamasander.
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Daryl Molina Sarmiento with Communities for a Better Environment, representing the community of Wilmington, where one company alone is allowed to operate 540 wells. I'm also the co-chair of Stand LA Coalition, Stand Together Against Neighborhood Drilling. All the members and supporters with Stand LA, please rise. We come from low-income communities of color across the city of Los Angeles, overburdened by toxic exposure from oil drilling, and that's why we are here coming together to speak before you today. We care about the health of people and workers' health and rights. We have worked hand in hand with unions for decades and want to express our support for labor and union causes of more benefits for workers, safer jobs, and creating win-win community worker solutions. The city must consider the best and safest alternatives to protect the most vulnerable residents. We are asking for an assessment to address the public health crisis that the residents of the city of Los Angeles are experiencing. You will hear today there's no justification for the city to not move forward with this land use and legal study. This is a very reasonable ask. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marta Dina Arguello. I'm the Executive Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility and the co-chair of Standing Together Against Neighborhood Drilling. I urge your support for this common sense motion that will initiate a long overdue step of examining the land use rules around oil and gas operations. This is an inherently dangerous practice occurring dangerously close to people for which we have safer alternatives. The City of Los Angeles and the State of California have committed to a clean energy economy, and as a public health organization, we believe it is better to prevent problems, to move upstream to protect us from the gravest threat to human health and the environment, that is our changing climate. The more we study this practice, the more we learn about the health harms from accidents, and we cannot forget that there are people behind the statistics that you will hear from our researchers today. That it is more than statistics and data. The people who are living with the constant threat of oil extraction, the toxic air emissions, the truck traffic, the disrupting noise, the vibrations, losing your sense of smell, the bloody noses, the gastrointestinal problems, the nausea, asthma attacks, the increase for low birth weight, and the nagging question, is my cancer caused by this oil drilling? It is time to move past false narratives of jobs versus the economy. We have the technology to bring green jobs to LA, to protect workers and create new jobs. Thank you.
Hi. If possible, I'd like to cede my time to Martha Arguello.
I'm sorry, you can't.
Okay. In that case, my name is Shazia Munji, and I'm here from Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles, and I'd just like to express my support for this motion.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next three. Sommer Yazanovsky, James Sad, and Kayla Williams.
So my name's Jennifer Kim. I'm actually, Jill Johnston couldn't stay, and she had to leave, and she left her statement here, so I'd like to read her statement on her behalf.
Did you sign up for a comment card?
My comment card is later.
Okay, I could only, they have to be present, so I'm going to pull your comment card up later. So you could only have 1 minute.
Statement later, then?
Well, you can read it now, but I'm going to.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pass.
Reset?
I'm going to actually pass for my time later.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is a statement from Dr. Jill Johnson, Assistant Professor of Preventative Medicine at University of Southern California. Air surrounding oil and gas production areas is particularly vulnerable to toxic emissions. A single drill site typically operates for decades, and the extraction process itself produces emissions of multiple health hazardous air pollutants, including benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylene, formaldehyde, hydrogen sulfide, and methylene chloride. These chemicals can migrate off-site due to fugitive emissions, spills, leaks, or accidents, and have been shown to be higher near drill sites compared to other areas. Air quality is further compromised by truck traffic to and from the drilling site or operation of diesel equipment. Exposure to these air pollutants are associated with the range of acute health symptoms, including eye, nose, and throat irritation, impaired lung function, dizziness, fatigue, and asthma exacerbation. Recent health studies near petroleum extraction sites have reported symptoms of throat and nose irritation, eye burning, sinus problems, headaches, and the list goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bhavna Shamsunder, and I'm faculty in the Urban and Environmental Policy Department at Occidental College. There's a growing literature on distance to oil and gas wells and recognized public health impacts. In short, studies find that the closer you live to an active well, the greater the skin and respiratory symptoms, asthma, and worse birth outcomes. Babies born to mothers near wells was associated with the prevalence of congenital heart defects. Mothers' exposure to benzene, one of the chemicals from oil development, has been associated with 2.3 times more likely chance of having a baby born with spina bifida. There's proximity to homes has been associated with the respiratory conditions and severe asthma exacerbation. These studies look at half a mile to a mile at kilometer and distances. Distances from well to residence in LA is much closer, with some wells being as close as 60 feet from a home. This has not been studied. We do know that air pollution and asthma, particularly from children, is a significant public health issue in LA, and that local pockets of poor air can affect birth outcomes. I urge you to take this motion seriously. Thank you.
My name is Dr. James Sad. I'm a professor of geology and environmental science at Occidental College and a researcher with the USC Program for Environmental and Regional Equity. I've done research on this issue, and Los Angeles currently hosts over 850 active oil and gas wells, with another 800 located just outside city limits. The wells are concentrated in two areas. About 2/3 of them are located in the Wilmington Harbor City area, and nearly all the rest in the mid-city west of downtown. Both of these areas are densely populated. For example, exposed neighborhoods in University Park, West Adams, and Wilmington are between 26 and 284% more densely populated than the city overall, with 20 to 65% more people living in poverty. These are neighborhoods that already experience very high exposures to environmental hazards and the vulnerability to the attendant health risks as measured by the Cal EPA using their Cal EnviroScreen methodology. In fact, many of the Cal EnviroScreen scores for these neighborhoods rank among the highest 5% of all census tracts in California. I'd be happy to make the research available to you if it'd be helpful.
You could give it to our office, thank you. Calling Chris Taylor, Samar Yazanovsky, Kayla Williams, Nikki Wong, Dr. Yelba Castellan, Monik Uriarte, and I'm going to call three more when the seats open up. Edgar Cabrera, Reverend Oliver Bui, and Omar Estudio. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Wong with Redeemer Community Partnership. I'm here on behalf of my community members who live adjacent to the Jefferson drill site in South LA, where there are 36 active wells 6 feet from residents' homes. In addition to the nuisances of noise and fumes, the site brings thousands of gallons of dangerous chemicals like acid, carcinogens, air toxins, and endocrine-disrupting chemicals into the community. I've met with several adjacent residents who have lost neighbors to cancer, who have children who developed asthma, and mothers who never got to meet their babies because of miscarriages. With every local incident of health concerns such as these, residents rightly question whether the site's hazardous operations have played a causal role. The growing body of scientific literature is finding that the current setback laws in various cities throughout the U.S. are currently not adequate to protect residents' health, and the population density of LA is actually 50 times greater than the rural communities these studies have considered, which underscores the need for a really strong setback ordinance in LA specifically. So just urge you to approve this motion as is and forward it to City Council.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Yelba Castellon. I'm a family physician at UCLA and a longtime resident of South Los Angeles. I also live about 1,000 feet from the Jefferson drilling site. I've been living and working in South LA for over 30 years now. My goal today is to bring forth a voice for those who can't be here today. Let me tell you about some of the health impacts that I have experienced personally and my family. We do smell fumes living where we live, chemical fumes, sometimes unbearably strong chemical odors, and in terms of health impacts, my grandmother did suffer from unexplained bloody noses, as does my 4-year-old son. As a mother, this terrifies me. I have 2 young children, one 4 and a 1-year-old, and I'm constantly worried about them when they play outside and they touch the soil and they breathe the air. I don't think anyone here can negate the fact that there's a huge density of folks in Los Angeles, and some of these communities carry a disproportionate burden when it comes to health and disease, and we need to do better to protect them.
Thank you.
Hi, my name
name is Kayla Williams. I just wanted to state my support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Edgar Cabrera, Reverend Oliver Bowie, Omar Estudio, Monica Uriarte. Go ahead.
Good afternoon to all in the room. My name is Edgar Cabrera. I am 14 years old, and I've lived in about 2 streets away from the Alico site that has closed down. As a kid, I always wanted to go play outside because that's what most kids want to do. But as
It's okay. Where do you live again, Edgar?
1953.
Yeah, Straight Avenue. Yeah.
All right.
So I would never be able to go to sleep.
No, go ahead. Just, what do you want to say?
Thank you. Every time my mom would have to put me to sleep, she always had to go to sleep, knowing that her son could at any moment have an asthma attack and go to the hospital, not knowing if her son would make it.
Well, I'm going to let your mom go first. And you go, okay, Mom?
Unfortunately, I'm not the mom of Edgar, but I'm very proud of him as well. A lot of kids in our community, then they are suffer exactly that Edgar say. They're scared to go to sleep and has an asthma attack that severe, then can pass away. As a mother, we are afraid to our own kids shock with a nosebleed. We are afraid, and we are not accept then this oil industry toxic our kids. We are an ordinary people working so hard for the well-being of our kids, and we can fight until these facilities close and stop to producing these toxic emissions, because our kids need to and deserve to live in a better environment. Thank you.
And your name is?
My name is Monique Uriarte.
And where do you live?
I used to live just across Atlenco for 10 years, and my daughter has a lot of nosebleed, headaches, heart palpitations, among other kids, and a lot of community members.
Thank you. Edgar, you want to say something? Are you okay?
Yeah. I share this because after Alicon ceased production, not only have my asthma symptoms declined, a lot of other symptoms are gone. I hope this committee is sure to protect me and my community's health. Thank you.
Good for you.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Oliver E. Bowie, speaking on behalf of Senior Pastor Kelvin Sauls and all the members of Holman United Methodist Church in South Los Angeles in the West Adams Historic District. We are proud members of the Stand Coalition. Our church is just down the street from the Murphy oil drilling site, and many of our members, including seniors and our neighbors, have experienced the serious health impacts firsthand. Social and environmental justice are a core part of our belief system, and as for the sake of our own community and also in solidarity with all communities throughout our city suffering from the environmental injustice, we strongly support creating a health and safety buffer around all drilling sites and urge this committee to approve this motion as it is and forward it to the full city council. Also, here in Los Angeles. We just request that we take this matter serious, that we won't have to have the problem that we have in Porter Ranch. Also, with the high density here in Los Angeles County, when many of these wells were dug, there were less people around. Now it has a greater potential of harming even more people with the high density. And I think.
Thank you, Reverend.
Yes,
Thank you, Reverend. I'm going to call 4 people. When you see the seats open up, you could just sit down. And that's Robin Doino, Mac Shorty, Keenan Shetty, and Jane Fowler. Go ahead, Omar.
Hello, my name is Omar Medina Estudio. I grew up in Wilmington and I have asthma. A lot of people that I know have asthma, including my sister and my mom. So one of my personal experiences was when I had an asthma attack was when I used to play football. We were doing conditioning, and out of nowhere, I just started having an asthma attack. It was hard for me to breathe, and then I was forced to leave football practice early. And these oil drilling operations definitely don't help, and it worsens my asthma. So we came here today, as in Stan LA and CBE, to ask you to approve this motion so that this study can get started as quickly as possible. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you. My name is Robin Doino. I'm a member of the ILWU, the International Longshore Workers Union. We have many of our 40,000 members in the affected areas. We beg of you to send this motion to council. Our times have changed. We're conscious of the environment today, and we have greater population. It's time to study this. Thank you very much.
Well, at least somebody with a real job. Max Shorty, chairman of the Watts Neighborhood Council. I stand here today asking that the city stand with these kids. No longer as adults are we allowing people to continue to hurt our children. Los Angeles can do better, will do better, and deserve better. So we're asking that you as city councilman, mine, I don't know where my empty seat is, but I'm surprised to see that we got 478 oil drilling taking place in the 15th council district. As chairman, when I take this back to my community, not only will we fill up this room, I'll bring 4 housing projects back with me. Because this is a shame that people have to sit here and literally beg for people to do the right thing for the sake of children. And I support, and I hope that you gentlemen that's here today, when you leave here tonight, going to be like me, because I'm not going to be able to sleep after hearing these kids testify.
And Councilman Buscaino is in part of negotiations. This is of utmost importance to him as well. He wanted to be here, but we had a special meeting today, so that's why he couldn't make it. But just wanted to let you know.
Thank you for your
council member
leadership.
Well,
I remember you from South LA.
Yeah, I'm gonna again. If the seats open up, just please sit down. Keenan Shetty, Jane Fowler, Heather Kriska, Tracy Beltran, and Gladys Limon. So if you see an open seat, please sit.
Thank you. Keenan Sheedy, member of SEIU Local 721, representing 97,000 workers in Southern California, and our Environmental Justice Action Team. We strongly support this motion going forward. Nearly 1/2 of our members who work for LA County and LA City live in disadvantaged communities, including most of these communities that are impacted by this oil drilling. I work at LAC USC Medical Center, work for the county, and every day we see the impact of pollution, cancer, lung function, a loss of work, loss of school time. We have a public health crisis going on, and it's up to us to take a stand. We stand with all of our community residents. The really safe job, the really secure job is one that's going to clean energy. Everybody deserves a job, but we need jobs that merge and support our public health, not work at cross purposes. So we strongly favor transition, and we support our community residents. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Kriska, and I'm with the Natural Resources Defense Council. We're here today to express strong support for this common sense motion. Oil drilling operations use and produce toxic chemicals known to harm people's health. These chemicals also pollute the air in the form of volatile organic compounds, greenhouse gases, and particulate matter. In California, nearly half of the residents living within a quarter mile of a well also face some of the worst health threats from pollution in the state. The vast majority of these communities are people of color. Los Angeles is the largest and most densely populated urban oil-bearing region in the country, hosting more than 900 active oil wells, with over 77% located within 2,500 feet of a home or sensitive land use, such as a school, park, or hospital. In addition, dangerous chemicals are used at these sites in close proximity to residents' homes. Providing a setback is a common sense solution, and studying this setback is the first step. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up three more names. Rabea Sen, Jamila Bradford, and Godfrey Wakira from Creed, LA. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Beltran, and I'm representing South Los Angeles members and Strategic Concepts for Organizing and Policy Education in South LA, a proud member of the STAND Coalition, and I'm submitting letters in support of the motion on behalf of the following organizations: Redeemer Community Partnership, Esperanza Community Housing, Communities for a Better Environment, SCOPE, Holman United Methodist Church, Physicians for Social Responsibility LA, ACT LA, SAGE, SEIU Local 721, St. John's Well Child and Family Center, Black Women for Wellness, International Longshore and Warehouse Union, Pacoima Beautiful, Center for Environmental Health, Californians Against Fracking, Sierra Club, Liberty Hill Foundation, Natural Resources Defense Council, Food and Water Watch, Courage Campaign, Bologna Institute, Center for Biological Diversity, SoCal 350, and Indivisible Cal 43. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. My name is Gladys Limon. I'm a staff attorney with Communities for a Better Environment. Now, oil drilling, a heavy, dangerous industrial activity in residential neighborhoods, is an inherently incompatible land use. No family should have to raise their children next to drilling sites. This motion is in step with local and state policies that require a transition to clean energy. A setback policy is a common sense and necessary measure to provide meaningful long-term protections to families in Los Angeles. It is and will become a common sense solution, just as it is to provide a safety zone to protect people from secondhand smoking without prohibiting smoking altogether. We also know that this transition will provide well-paying jobs, safe jobs, and healthy communities. Now, we have done extensive legal research to study the legal parameters and implications of a setback ordinance in the city. No one has more of a vested interest than frontline communities to ensure that a setback ordinance is structured to withstand legal scrutiny. Existing law and the unique facts of urban oil drilling in Los Angeles place the city in a very strong position to enact a legally defensible human health and safety setback. It is well established in both state and federal law that local governments have inherent police powers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jose Pina, is it Asia? Asia Flowers? Okay. Sorry. Eric Roman. If you see an empty seat, please come on up.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Jamila Bradford, and I'm here today with Creed LA. The oil industry offers economic opportunity for many who might otherwise have limited professional options. These industries offer living wage jobs for those without a higher education degree. More than 7 in 10 oil industry workers have no college degree. These are workers who would otherwise struggle to find a job that can meet basic needs. I urge you to fight to keep the career options open for many of your voters. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Godfrey Washira, and I'm also with Creed LA. We believe that for the society to thrive, the government should seek a balance between competing societal goals and values. And in this case, it's not just a question of health versus. It's much more, obviously, much more complex. And shifting away, focusing just on health and shifting away from other values and goals, like in this case, would mean a loss of well-paying jobs, a loss of tax revenues, and loss of investment from the tax revenues in social safety nets. One, the whole idea of well-paying jobs, it's true, green jobs will pay well, but what we have is during that transition, what are the losses that will take place? And this is real families that are having an impact out of that transition. Secondly, oil will be around for a long time to come. We're going to use, the cars are not going to go electric anytime soon, all cars. So are we going to take that loss as a seat in terms of revenue during that transitional period?
So your name was?
Godfrey Washira, Creed LA. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jose, and I'm here today supporting the building trades. We support PLAs and good local jobs. We have a PLA with CRC, headquartered here in the city of Los Angeles. As a leader in the industry, they offer good, safe jobs and have some of the strictest safety standards in the nation. Allowing production to continue in Los Angeles is essential for the local economy, and we urge you to look at the economic impacts that will result from making changes to this setback, which would essentially shut down this vital industry. Thank you.
My name is Asia, and I'm a community member. A world without oil is not an option. Let's keep the 116,000 oil and gas jobs local, the workers and residents safe, and the environment closely monitored rather than send the industry to another company. We hope that the community will support local employment and the economy. Thank you.
Jane Fowler, Rabea Sen, Eric Roman. Are they not here? Okay. All right. Okay. Jaimini Parek, Alexandra Nagy, Walker Foley, Dr. Tom Williams, and Steve Gregg. When the seats open up, please come on up.
Good afternoon or good evening, council members. Eric Roman with the Stand LA Coalition, longtime labor and community organizer here in Los Angeles. Really appreciate your opening comments about the need to transition away from dirty, toxic industries in our communities, right? And you know, I spoke to Jane Fowler actually earlier today, and she mentioned she couldn't make it because of illness related to Aliso Canyon leak. We also support transition that's based around union jobs. We absolutely support project labor agreements, right? The future economy for Los Angeles is clearly in renewable energy. Councilmember, you rightly stated that renewable energy industry creates more jobs. So we call on our brothers and sisters here from the labor movement to join with us in a forward-thinking vision to create jobs for you, to create jobs for young people in the community, union jobs, good-paying jobs, career jobs in clean energy, and at the same time to protect the very communities that need those jobs and that also suffer, as you heard, from the health impacts of oil operations in their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Alexander Nagy with Food and Water Watch. I just wanted to comment on the remarks mentioned from Governor Brown earlier this week. We love Governor Brown and the work that he's been doing on clean renewable energy, but he still has this blind spot when it comes to oil and gas operations in our communities. We agree with Councilmember Englander that this does not belong in our communities, and we want to continue to work to shut it all down everywhere and forever, which is why we're starting to work in the Playa del Rey community around that gas storage facility issue and want to make sure that oil and gas wells pertaining to that facility are included in this motion. I also wanted to note something else that's happening across the state that I hope Governor Brown pays attention to, which is that Kern County is actually looking to drill 70,000 new oil and gas wells. This is when California is posing itself as a climate leader. I think this is another opportunity for LA to be the real leader in California and continue to demonstrate where we need to go for our future. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Walker Foley. I am also an organizer for Food and Water Watch, and my work takes me to the ground in a lot of the communities that have been impacted by gas storage facilities. I've been working for the last 2 years in the Aliso Canyon area. I have canvassed personally in that fog of emissions that Councilmember Englander at this point is all too familiar with. And And now I am starting to canvass and talk to residents around the Playa del Rey gas facility, and the story is the same. The emissions are the same. The health impacts and problems are the same. And it is unfortunate that our communities, our residents, are well ahead of the research on health. They know exactly what is going on in their bodies and to their children. And I applaud the city for this effort. To get some studies on the books and to really study the urban impacts. And I urge you to please support this motion for the sake of Angelinos everywhere.
Hi, my name is Jamie Parek. I'm an attorney and fellow with Communities for a Better Environment, and I will continue my colleagues' comments about legal issues. Existing law and the unique facts of urban oil drilling in Los Angeles place the city in a strong position to enact a legally defensible human health and safety drilling setback ordinance. It is well established in both state and federal law that local governments have the inherent police power to enact local prohibitions and restrict oil and gas development within their jurisdiction through zoning measures. This is true even when oil drilling or other activity at issue has operated lawfully for some time. Under the law, a land use activity that was once lawful but becomes unlawful because of an interim change in law simply becomes known as a non-conforming use. The City of LA is well positioned to enact a setback ordinance because the municipal code reserves control over oil operations. The hazards faced by the dense population are compelling, as you've heard, and President in the city supports such an action.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Steve Gregg, California Resources Corporation. Thanks for taking the time today. We do support a plan that prepares a comprehensive study that determines the actual health effects of oil and gas operations in LA. If the study is going to look at all of the operations, it should be real clear in the study kind of which impacts are coming from oil and gas production versus natural gas storage versus refining. In terms of natural gas storage, the operations are very different than oil and gas production, and the regulations are different. We're governed under different set of regulations. In addition, the report should look at the direct and indirect economic impacts of what takes place in response to the ordinance in terms of the setback. It should include the potential for job loss and how those can be impacted by that type of an ordinance. And then finally, in aligning with the governor's recent comments, that the report should also look at the environmental and human rights standards of the countries that produce the oil and gas that we currently import to LA. Thank you.
I think that's all the comment cards. I just have one question for our Petroleum Administrator. 120 days, are you okay with that? Is that enough time? Or do you want us to keep it and you'll come back to us if you need more time?
I think 120 days is appropriate. I mean, I believe the clock starts once the city council adopts both. That's fine.
Okay.
I think we'll put us around October.
And if for some reason you need more time, you could definitely come back to the committee and let us know. Any questions?
Just, I know you've got an amendment.
Yeah.
That was already circulated?
I
didn't know.
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple. First, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today, and particularly our youth that came out to testify. But everybody who there's nobody that's not impacted by operations of all types of facilities. There are better operators than others, and there are newer facilities, and we can get into all those details, but there's nobody that's not impacted. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. And with that, too, I look very forward to supporting this motion and moving this forward. I do think there are some very valid points that were brought up that have to be considered as well. And I also support the 64 amendments, the laundry list of amendments by Councilman Rue, Chairman of the committee, that all make a lot of sense. One of the things in the motion too, first, before I get into my minor amendment, I would rather not call any of these a study, and that's just a personal view. I think it needs to be considered a plan and not a study. And I said earlier to the Petroleum Administrator, for those who weren't in the room, that we'd start here with the land use and then go into health, environmental, emergency plans, financial and feasibility, employment protection and transitions, and clean energy implementation. But I think that's where it should really go as new a plan. But in any event, in terms of, there was one thing that jumped out on number 3 of the motion was federal due process and takings law, and that pertained to paragraphs 1 and 2. So if we could, when this comes back, we need to know what we're talking about so we can consider it in wearing my other hat, budget and finance, as the vice chair of that committee, so we can fund this. And we don't sit around talking here for another 5 years about, okay, now that we've got a plan in place, we're not just talking about land use in terms of not allowing, but we're also talking about discontinuance of non-conforming, which, and while I support those efforts, there's a cost, and we need to know. And so we can start talking in other committees on what to make of that and how to prepare for it. So a CAO report on the cost of what this effect would be, that would be number 1. And the other thing that was mentioned, and I think it's worthy of discussion, and we should send it to the Jobs Committee when it comes back to this committee, is the employment protections, a transition, and any job loss considerations. That, what are we talking about? What are we looking at? We need to know the space in this as well. And we can't just fix one problem and create another. We can fix 2 problems. And I'm all for looking at a win-win here. But we need to know what the space is. We need to know what we're looking at. And we have to go about this with both eyes wide open. And so that's what I would ask, is to allow that as a friendly amendment, those 2 things to come back: the CAO report, the feasibility, financial, economic study, and job loss. And I think that's pretty reasonable.
Great, thank you. And no more questions from the committee, and I had a feeling that you were going to put in that amendment. I would like to move approval of this item with the following amendments. The verbal amendment that Councilmember Englander just talked about regarding jobs, and to replace the further detail of the second moving clause as follows. I further move that the Petroleum Administrator be instructed to work with the City Attorney's Office, LA County Department of Public Health, relevant City of Los Angeles departments, and other health agencies or organizations as necessary to report within the 120 days on the following. Point 1, what type of health impacts can be measured at and around oil and gas well and drill sites? Point 2, whether, what kind, and what distance a setback and potential mitigation measures from sensitive receptors should be established. Point 3, an evaluation of various types of materials used at oil and gas sites that can have health impacts, how those materials are used, and what authority the city has over regulating their use. Point 4, a evaluation of various types of drill sites, including active oil fields, abandoned oil fields, and gas storage fields. Point 5, what activities currently govern or regulate oil and gas sites related to health impacts in Los Angeles City, and what authority does the Los Angeles City have to regulate those health impacts? 6, the upcoming LA County Public Health Interim Guidance on Urban Oil and Gas Operation. 7, any recommendations from LA County Public Health on whether a health impact or health risk assessment report on oil and gas drill site operations within the City of Los Angeles is recommended, including the necessary resources and timeline to complete each type of study. Point 8, any recommendations to enhance public health collaboration regarding oil and gas drill site oversight between the city, county, and other related health agencies. And last point, a draft memorandum of understanding between LA City and LA County Public Health Department with suggested terms, including emergency protocols, communication strategy, and a clear delineation of public health roles and responsibilities. With that,
Can I ask for a point of clarification on one of these?
Which one?
And offer 2 suggestions based on those. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th one. What agencies currently govern or regulate oil and gas? If we can ask for that report to delineate by industry, because it's difficult often to figure, because there are different regulatory agencies that oversee different industries, and a couple of the speakers mentioned that as well. It would be good for us to have that.
Our administrator kind of went over that.
So it'd be good to get that back. If we can not just have it, what govern oil and gas, but if we can get a list back of sort of a metrics of who's in the space of energy and who are the regulatory authorities.
The difference between a refinery and the pipeline and an oil field.
Right, in a storage facility, right. Yeah. So sort of a matrix of that. That would be very, very helpful. And while an MOU between the city and the counties takes more than an act of Congress, I support that effort. And as long as we're reaching for the stars, then I would also ask that maybe there's possible to get one with Dogger and the PUC at the same time, or maybe it's a goal. I mean, not that we can ever get them to return a phone call, but nevertheless, it would be great to.
Or why don't we add between LA City and LA County Public Health Department and or
other regulatory agencies.
Regulatory agencies, because I think the county also said they work with the planning department themselves. So
I like it.
Okay, so no further objections. So moved. And I just want to close by saying thank you to everybody who came out, especially all the hardworking men and women of the city of Los Angeles. Thank you so much for your testimonies. And we did include that jobs piece. I think that's very, very important about just because there will be a time period from when the new industry does come in. We want to make sure that there's a very little gap as possible, and we create those jobs immediately. And also to all the young folks who are here and all the environmental activists, thank you so much for coming. And I think the best, most influencing testimony we heard today was Edgar Cabrera. Is he still here? Edgar? Is he gone? Okay, well, tell him, he was the best. And with that, we'd like to adjourn. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification for the last item. The committee approved as amended. However, this is also referred to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely
before
correct.
Before it goes straight to council, sir.
That's right, I'm on that committee too.
Right, so it's going to move on to Planning and Land Use Committee.
And
sorry
then
to
for
interrupt,
my
sir.
actual language, I'll get you that from my office. So
Thank you, sir.
in writing.
Okay.
As always.